Few things are for sure in this life, but this is. If we live for any substantial amount of time, we will encounter grief due to the loss of a loved one. Not something any of us ever want, and we all handle it differently. This podcast is to feature those who have done purposeful and meaningful things through their grief. These people featured on here are normal folks, just like you and me, who were thrust into a place they never wanted to be in their lives. A painful place. As they moved through their pain, they realized that something worthwhile, something for the greater good, could come out of the unthinkable. I'm sure that none of them would ever consider themselves to be a hero, but when I searched the definition of the word hero, I found this: a person who is admired or idolized for courage, outstanding achievements, or noble qualities. And that fit. And so it's my privilege to bring you the remarkable stories of these heroes in grief. Hi, everyone. This is Tom, your host for the Heroes in Grief podcast, and the response has been incredible so far, and I want to thank you for that. It's getting out to people, and they're letting us know that it's helping them, and that is what it's all about. I want to make you aware of a way that you can support this podcast without having to spend 1 cent, and that is through affiliate marketing. I've set up affiliate marketing for online shopping. If you do online shopping, then I have links to all the major retailers, most of them anyways, and I can provide them for you so that when you buy online through those links, you'll help support the podcast through the percentages that we get. It doesn't cost you anything more. You just shop like you regularly would on the sites that you love. It's very easy. All you have to do is shop. And that's it. Just let me know the links to the places that you want to shop at, and I will provide the affiliate links so that you can do it. If you want more information on this, you can go to heroesingrief.com. It takes you to the Linktree page where a video explains it in a little more detail. But you can always email me at tom@heroesingrief.com, and I can answer questions for you. But you can support the podcast that way, and it's very easy, very simple, and it doesn't cost you a cent. Isn't that great? Thank you. Now here's today's episode.
Yay.
Well, thanks you guys for doing this. I appreciate it. Christine and Kerry have on board here. And we just get into conversation. You know, I just want to learn about what you do. And Christine, thanks for messaging me to be part of this and tell me a little bit about what you do, or a lot about what you do, actually. But so, yeah, I guess we just start there. Let's, why don't you just share about yourselves and talk about what we can learn about you.
So I guess I know like this has to do with grief, and part of it is us talking about like our personal grief stories. And for me, I think grief comes in a lot of different ways. And for myself personally, I think my grief came in 2020 when the pandemic hit, and I was a nurse working in a hospital, and there was a lot of fear surrounding that. And then I was going through a divorce during that same time. So trying to navigate through all of that and raise 2 kids that were small going through the same thing I was going through. So for me, that was really, really challenging. And there was a lot of things throughout that time period that came up within me that I guess at first I probably didn't recognize it as grief. But like since I've gone through a healing journey and trying to figure out more about myself, I see it now that was what it was. Like I can actually like look at the 5 stages, I wrote them down, of grief, and see myself in that time period going through all those different stages at different times. So yeah, that was mine. And so through all of that, I know you said a little bit that like you use your grief to kind of channel it in a different way. And I kind of did the same thing right after, while I was going through all of this, I met a man who had terminal cancer, and he was young. He was only 52. And so I was a nurse, and I was doing home care at the time. So I was going into his home, and I was really just there to do a task. But that's not, when you sit there and you get to know your patient and talk to them and figure out like what makes them who they are. And throughout all of that, I was able to use the tools that I learned throughout my grief and my healing journey to kind of help him towards the end of his life. I mean, it was the end of his life because he died a few months after I met him. So I kind of guided him through that journey naturally and just using the tools that I learned. And because of him, I wanted to do this more. Because I think it's important. I think as a human being, we all are going to have to go through that journey of dying. And a lot of times people in our culture and our society, they don't know what to do when somebody's dying. Everybody kind of panics and freaks out, and they don't know what to say to the person. They don't know what to do. And so I wanted to learn a little bit better how to help people that are experiencing their dying process. So that's what I do now.
I like that you took something you recognized in your gifts and recognizing that you were okay in that situation. I had a similar experience before I became an EMT. I worked ambulance for a long time, but before that ever happened, I came upon 2 accidents, and I was like the first person there, and it was in a month period. One was a pregnant lady. She got T-boned right on her side of the car. And I really didn't do anything medically at all. Like you said, you didn't really know. You were just doing it. But I realized that I was okay in that situation, and I was comforting them or whatever the case was. So it's similar in that. And so then I just said, well, that's something I think I should be doing. And I think you kind of did the same thing, which is awesome. So yeah, in the home care situation, sure, you get to know your patients. Judy, my fiance, she does home care here in Niagara County and want to help. And I agree with you with, the stigma surrounding the death situation, grief situation is certainly there. And so, yeah. All right. So Christine, before we go further, why don't we talk about your background and your story a little bit and find out where you're coming from?
Sure. So like Kerry, I'm a registered nurse. And the thing about what we'll call them death doulas.
Right.
It's always a weird term, isn't it? I mean, it's a death doula. Like people think you're going to come in like the Grim Reaper and bye-bye.
Let me tell you too. Sorry. I even coming into this work and working in hospice for 3.5 years, I never heard of a death doula. And so when I started getting into the circles of the grief networking circles, all of a sudden I'm seeing this death doula thing come up all the time. And I honestly, I kind of avoided it too. I said, I didn't know what that was.
Sure.
But then I started looking in and getting, I'm glad that you're on today because I want you to talk about that and really what that is and everything. But first, back to your story, and then we'll get into that.
Yeah, no, that's great. So for me, it was a kind of a windy journey. Obviously, I started as a registered nurse and did all that, and then made a decision when the company I was working for was changing, and because it was a wonderful place to be. It was a staff model HMO, and I'm like, this is the future of healthcare. Here's where we're going, right? And then it did its thing, and it decided that we were just going to be an insurance company, and I didn't want to do that.
No, definitely not.
So yeah, I'm just like, no, I don't want to do that. And I decided to go to massage school. And I became a massage therapist because I wanted to spend time with my patients. For me, that's what was missing, was being up close and personal with people. And so I did that. And then, as that progressed, I opened a wellness center, all these good, fun things. And, and I'm like, there's just something that's not there. What am I missing? And I found the death doula, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? We all experience loss in a lot of different ways. It can be the loss of a person. It can be the loss of a relationship, the loss of a job you love, of your pets, there's so many aspects to loss and grief and trying to come out the other side, because we get to stay here when they don't. And how do we do that? And so for me, that's what triggered it. Was I need to be able to spend time with people and be able to share that. And even not doing it formally, when people are on your massage table, they tell you many, many things. Sometimes they tell you things you don't want to know. But they tell you things, they share with you, they trust you. It's a very trusting environment. And, so helping people through loss and grief was a thing for me. I was doing it without even really thinking about the fact that I was doing it. And so, I did the doula training to kind of see what's happening out there. What are we doing? What's going on with that? And it harkened me back to a time when, and Kerry knows this story, that I had a patient. This was at the height of the AIDS epidemic, and people really didn't know what was happening and what was going on, and this individual just wanted to go home. He just wanted to go home, and so we tried to get him home, and it failed because there was nothing, there was not enough that could be done, and so he was back and, at the hospital, and he ended up staying. And what I realized is I would go and visit him, and what I realized is no one else was going to visit him. I was the only person that was showing up for this man, and it was heart-wrenching to think about, and it still is. I can still feel it, I still feel that emotion around it, and I'm like, you know what? No one should die alone. It's I always say there's two certainties in life. You're born and you die. And what happens in between is everything that you create. And the desire to just, comfort another human being and be there for them is really just something that we strive to create.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the tale.
Yep. Experienced that at hospice for sure. People would always say, how can you do that work and everything? But, it's so honoring to be pulled into somebody's life, to be entrusted at that time to assist in any way. And so, I always saw it that way. And then the rewards afterwards, the appreciation from people was always extreme. So that was awesome, and excellent. And yes, both of you mentioned this, and I was in the healthcare field for a long time, and our true desire is for the people. That's why we get into it. And then a lot of things now with corporations and everything going on. And then Christine, you said, this is why we started our thing here, kind of an offshoot of that corporate situation, the insurance situation turned into, right? And it takes away from the patient care aspect. It happened with us in ambulance a lot, the ambulance workers. We were inundated with all this outside peripheral stuff all the time, and it took away from your patient care. You tried to focus on that, but it was so frustrating around the sides of it and everything. So I think we see a lot more of what's happening with both of you is that you're starting your own things out there and these holistic centers and things like that care for the whole person and everything. And that's what you're part of too. Once again, everybody, I always remind you all, we'll have all the links for everything that we're talking about here in the show notes. So check those out for sure. And if you're in the Western New York area, Christine and Kerry are local here in Western New York. So you'll be able to contact them for that too. So back to the death doula. Now, I know what really kind of brought it to be for my understanding of it. And I think it was the term midwife, really, that caused me to understand it. Okay, this is what we're talking about here. And that's kind of an older term, I guess, right? And doula is kind of maybe the newer form of it. What would you say, as you describe what a death doula really is and really does? What is that?
It's a variety. It's kind of a variety of things, and it depends on the individual because there's really this and I hate to call it a scope of practice because that sounds so medical, but it's really not. Death doulas, for the most part, are technically non-medical individuals. Kerry and I just happen to be nurses, and there's a lot of nurses out there that have chosen to do this. So you can call it a death doula. You can call it a birth doula. You can call it a death midwife if you want to, just like you do, with birth. There's still midwifery out there, and there's a lot of great midwives. So the term and the title are a little fluid, but it culminates in the same kind of thing. It's finding the ability to guide people from, hey, you know what, we're all going to die, and maybe we need to kind of think about how that's going and where the rest of my life is going to go and what's my legacy, all the way to that final moment,
Yeah.
when someone takes their last breath. And it depends on the individual doula, what they choose to do. Um, Kerry and I kind of laugh because we have this discussion of like, I at the stage of my life where I'm at, and what I feel I have time to give to people is, okay, let's talk about how you want things to go. Let's make sure that you have things in place. What's your proxy? What's your will? What's your legacy? What's your this? And Carrie, where she is in her journey, is very much a, let me come and sit and hold your hand and be
Whatever
that
you need me to be. Yeah, just
person.
hold
Yeah.
the space open because part of our training in the doula course that Christine and I took, it's called holding space for somebody, where when people are in that journey or that towards death, a lot of times when you just sit there and hold space, a lot that is in comes out, and a lot of times, like, my goal in doing this work and what I hope to do is like make it feel like people get what they like, make it put like the cherry on the top, like when we leave this earth, everything's finished. I told all my loved ones I loved them, and like gave it back and forth, because it's back and forth, it's like there's a lot of healing that goes into dying, if that makes sense. So it's like solving everybody's or helping them solve all of their unfinished business before they have to leave here is what I hope to do for people.
Great. That was a great transition. I was going to ask you, Kerry, what your view of things were. So that worked great. And you mentioned, Christine, you brought up the legacy aspect. And I did see some of that on the site and things. I don't like to review the sites too much. I like to get a little background, but I love just an organic conversation like we're having right now. So do both of you bring in the legacy aspect of things and try to do something, establish that for them?
Definitely.
Yeah, I think so. And the thing about legacy is it can be very different. It's what is it that you want? What is it that you want to leave for those that you're leaving behind? And when people say legacy, they say like, oh, I have to establish a legacy and leave millions of dollars and do this whole big thing. And it's like, that's not what a legacy is. A legacy is, how will you be remembered?
Yes, it could be like something that you love doing. Like, let's say you love to cook, so you leave your favorite recipe for your children, and I would help you write it all down, like things like that. Or like, you love to garden, so let's plant a garden so that your kids can come to it and sit by it and remember you.
It's all those things. Do you just want to write letters to all your loved ones and express your emotions and talk about things that were important to you that you want them to remember? Sure, we can do that for you. We can write it down. Do you want a video? We can do that for you too. You want to talk on video instead. You want to, we can go big. You want to go big or go home. We can, want to write a book? We can help you do that too. But it becomes, it's what do you want to leave behind? And, it's not always physical things. Well, I want to leave a big mansion, or I want to leave my car, or I want to leave. It's not those things. It's the personal things.
So people think legacy is a big word, and they think it's grandiose things, and really it's not. It's just whatever is meaningful to the people that you love, right? Yeah.
Correct.
That's awesome. Beautiful. That is beautiful. I love it. So Christine, you contacted me through, I'm starting the Grief Talks thing and everything. And so we're working in this field together to try to break the stigma of all of this, really, that's the biggest thing. And I noticed, on the site too, where it talks about, people are, maybe not so comfortable with the discussion and the things and trying to help that. And that's really
Mm-hmm.
on my heart too. I want to try to normalize the grief conversation and be proactive in it too. And I think that's an important thing. You look at wellness now and everything, and I've heard some people talk about in the school systems and universities now they're bringing in speakers to talk to help the students in wellness aspects. And, I think grief
Mm-hmm.
can be an important part of that, the grief conversation, because you can equip people better and help them to respond better. And that's what you said too, both of you, that, we want people around the situation to just be more comfortable in it and kind of help this conversation. Right. And is that really what we're trying
Mm-hmm.
to do here?
It really is with, grief. Yeah. And, people need to understand it. A lot of people think that, oh, well, come on, it's been a year,
Yeah.
give it up, get on with your life. And that's not how grief works. It's definitely not linear. And there is no time frame on it. My personal thing is that, my father has been gone. My father's been gone 33 years. And there are still moments when I think, wow, I really miss my dad. And I will cry because he was
Yeah.
my dad, It was a thing. He was a special person in my life. So there is you never stop grieving. It just changes over time. It's a piece of you. It's a piece of your life. It's a piece of your soul. And you live your life with that new piece
Yeah.
with you. There's a friend of mine. Her husband passed away young from cancer, and it was a rough go. It was a rough go for him. And she said it's not that, and she's married again, and she's the whole thing. And she said it doesn't just because I have a new what I'll consider a new life doesn't mean that I don't feel the love and all the things that were in my previous life. We'll call it like that. And she said I think about him and I miss him, and I'll never not miss him. But I miss the fact that he's just not here. It's not it's not any diminishing of my new relationship. It's just the fact that I miss that this human being, who was a wonderful human being, is no longer with us. And and people need to recognize that. And the people who are grieving feel like they're alone a lot, because they feel like nobody understands what they're going through. And to an extent, that may be true because every situation is unique. But we want people to understand what other people are going through, and know that it's a thing and it's okay. That to have those feelings and those thoughts, and want your person around again.
Kerry,
Yes.
you were about to say something at one point there. I just wondered if you had anything to add.
Yeah, now I forgot what I was going to say.
That's all
But
right.
it's okay.
That's all right.
No, it's okay. Yeah, I guess adding on that, I'll use my analogy for grief. My analogy that I always use is like, think of grief. Think of a big, huge box, and there's a button in that box. And when it first happens, the event, whatever it is that we're grieving, the loss of a pet, family member, a divorce, anything, the ball is huge and it keeps hitting that grief button over and over again. And then over time, the ball gets smaller, but the button's still there. So every once in a while, it'll hit that button. And when it does, it feels the same thing. Like all the feelings that you had when the event first happened comes forward. But it's still there. It never leaves you. It's still, that button is still there always. It's going to be a part of you.
Yeah. And we can, as you were talking, Christine, too, we're able to handle a lot, to have a lot in us. It doesn't have to be so I guess blind-eyed, in our life. you can have these other things in part of you and everything. And it's the same thing with grief, of course, where, a lot of people think, well, if the grief is lessening, then I'm losing the love. Well, you're never going to lose the love. It's not going to happen. So yes, these complex things can happen in us, and we're wonderfully made that way. It's great. It's a great thing, actually. And so people got to realize that they can have that and that they can allow that to happen in them, which is exciting to help them realize that there's more to it. It's okay. It's okay to think that way, to feel that way and everything. It doesn't mean that, like you talked about a relationship, Christine, or some moving on, in their life and whatever's happening. And so how can you do that because of the love of this person or whatever? Well, I can do both things. I can have those feelings. It's okay. And so that's very important too. I know that with what you do, that you probably you encounter a lot of anticipatory grief too with people because of long-term situations and things. So, any interesting aspects out of that, or then you deal with grief kind of the same way, don't you? In the midst of that.
Yeah. So, I mean, are you asking me like how I help people through that anticipatory grief?
I think it's just something for people to realize that you can be grieving already, as you're going into the situation.
Oh yeah.
My mom, she got sick the last 10 months, and she became, she was, she's 95 years old when she passed. The last 10 months, she started slipping mentally and things like that. So she wasn't the same mom. So you're already grieving in that aspect as you go forward, right? And so, just, maybe interesting things amongst that, or the challenges in that, maybe.
To be honest, like the certain clients that I've had, it was a lot of that, but it was really just about me being there for her at her bedside, letting her talk about it and letting the family come to me with their grief and allowing that space. Like I was with this woman, she was elderly, she's in her late 80s, and I just started off as a caregiver in her home. But then over the course of time, I could see how she was deteriorating, and we did a lot of things together. We had dinners together. We had a lot of conversation. So I kind of became a death doula, not even with that expectation, just because of what I do. But it was beautiful to see that, to be able to experience that, to be able to be there for her while she was going through that journey and be there for her kids. And there was a beautiful moment where, she had this moment of clarity, and she died 2 days after this moment, but she opened her eyes and she was crying, and she told us how scared she was, and her kids were saying, "It's okay, Mom. It's okay. You're allowed. You can go be with Dad. We're good. We're okay." And she called us each out individually and like gave us a little thing that she used to call us. Like her and our thing was our angels. She had an angel, Douglas was her angel's name, and mine was Arabelle. So she said that, "I'm going to go be with Douglas and Arabelle." And I'm like, "You are." And then she looked at her daughter and said, "And you need an angel." And her daughter said, "You'll be my angel, Mom." And it was just such a beautiful experience that I'm so grateful I got to be a part of. So it's not always like, it's challenging. Like, yes, there's a lot of emotions tied to it. There's sadness. It brings things up in us, but it's beautiful at the same time. It's not all scary and, oh my God, like filled with that panic and drama that we do. We put that there, but that doesn't need to be there.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's something people just don't realize. And it's our human condition, I think, that we feel the best feelings when we do what I think we're supposed to be doing. And that's caring for one another in that way, and that type of thing. Awesome. So you talked about that was almost would you consider that a terminal lucidity time with that person?
Yes, because she was confused most of the time, and just in that moment she kind of woke up, and she was at the point where days leading to that where she couldn't remember what she had for breakfast that morning or things like that. But like in that moment, she remembered our angels. She remembered like things. She's like, "You're my little pal," and I'm like, "I am your little pal," because she used to have 5 o'clock happy hour was her thing. So sometimes, every once in a while, I'd have a little glass of wine with her. We'd sit there and have happy hour together. So because she liked that. So I was just there for her, really. So I'm grateful I was able to do that work
Oh,
with her.
awesome.
She was an amazing human
That is a
being.
great story. And so, yeah, I want to follow or go into this a little bit deeper, if you don't mind, experiences like that, like terminal lucidity. And I wanted to ask you about any spiritual experiences you may have had or whatever, or considered maybe that way in the work that you've done.
100%. Yes. I can always, like, I walked into her room one morning and it was just the sun coming into the room, the light. Like, I can't even explain to you just what it felt like in there, and the smells. Like, it was a beautiful, like, perfumey smell. I can't even explain what it was. But yeah, yeah, I don't know. Christine, did you have any experiences like that?
It is, and you talked about like that lucidity, and that's something that people need to understand happens because people are like, oh, they're rallying, they're doing so much better, they're going to be okay, and you're like, no, this is what happens, but this is your opportunity. But this is your opportunity. This is your opportunity. Grab it, go in, have that conversation, and do all of that, whatever you need to do in this moment. And Kerry was saying, I remember when my mom was passing away and she lived with us at the time, and she was like, you need to call everyone in the room. I was like, okay. She's like, no, go get everybody. This was her lucid moment. And so we came in and she's like, okay, where's the dog? Where's the cat? I mean, she had to have everybody, in the room. And then, it was this, I want y'all to know I love you. And the whole, I'm going to call it, and I'm going to be sincere in the kumbaya moment. So it's that, but that spiritual aspect, you have just that feeling, where there's more than just you and them in the room, and you'll get people who will talk. And people will say, hey, it's me, wait for me, I'm coming, or whatever. And you're like, there's nobody here but you and me, but you're talking to somebody. And you're talking to somebody that I can't see, but you sure can. And it becomes that, yeah, there's more to this than just us, and there's nothing. That's what I think. Some people think there's absolutely nothing, but there's got to be more, because
yeah,
why would
I definitely believe it too. And are you familiar with Dr. Christopher Kerr from Buffalo Hospice, Niagara Hospice, or Buffalo Erie Hospice, right? I don't know the proper name, but anyways, he's internationally known now because of his studies in that of people before they're going to pass, and they talk about and many of the occurrences where they see loved ones, ready to take them on to the next portion of their life and things, and over the veil or through the veil, whatever you want to say. But yes, they see loved ones. They will have these times of terminal lucidity, which they come back to who they really are, even though they've had dementia or Alzheimer's and those kind of things. And they have this moment of clarity where they know everybody and they remember everything and all of this. And then, there's many other things that he's recorded actually and talked to the people about, and they allowed him to do that. So yeah, look that up. Dr. Christopher Kerr is his name. So if anybody wants to research that, check that out. But so let's get to there's a few different things. You have you're at the Body Essential, which is, Christine, is that just you there, or is Kerry there too, as far as the holistic aspect there?
No, we're all there. So what we end up having there is I have a group of massage therapists, Reiki masters, acupuncturists, esthetician. We have yoga. We have life coaching. We have what else did I miss besides us? The doulas, all of those things.
Your daughter does aromatherapy, so she's
aromatherapy.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's a lot of things going on in our office, and we're just a piece of it at this point, which is kind of how I wanted it to be in the beginning. Was let's create this place where people can come and do whatever. We have classes outside of the yoga classes. One of our massage therapists, Phil, is a professional dancer, so he offers dance for life classes, so to help you do that. And we offer, different programs. Kerry and I do what we call death cafes, and those are opportunities for people to come, have some coffee, have some tea, have a little snack, and kind of, talk about anything and everything that's related to life, death, and dying, and give people an opportunity. We've done panel discussions where we brought in an oncologist and a funeral director and a wills and estates attorney, and then us, and answered questions and done those things as well. Coming up in the 2025, we're in the process of developing our plan for the cafes, and we're going to do lunch and learns instead of an evening cafe. So we're going to look to do them on Sundays for a couple hours and come have lunch with us. We'll provide food and all this stuff and talk about different topics. And we hope that we will invite you and you will join us for as a special guest someday. You're welcome to all of them, but we'd love to have you as a special guest. And, so that's a lot of what we do there. Kara, what do you want to throw in that mix?
No, I think you covered it pretty well. Yes. Yeah, you covered it.
And I love that, cover the whole aspect of the person. And I've had some other people on the podcast that maybe they're working with people's diets during their grieving time or things like that because you do got to take care of yourself. And also in the death process, obviously, too, as you're stressing with all of that and the people around the situation. So it's very important. And, I like seeing the different avenues for people. There's so many things out there available. And that's what we want to get out to help people understand. There's something for you. There's something for you out there. So,
there's a lot of something.
And it's not always what you think it is. Because right now I work in the ER. I am an ER nurse. And I think I see a lot of people who it's sad. They just don't know where to go. And I want to build that place so that people can go to it and say, you can get help.
Yeah.
There's other places. It's not always in the medical model, which is what we're used to. That's what we're used to in this society and culture.
Yeah. People tend to think that medicine is the answer, and medicine doesn't have all those answers because there's so much more to it. Medicine is what is wrong with you today, and how can we make a change in that, from coming out of the medical world, I find that here's a problem, how do I fix it? And it's not how do I keep that problem from happening, or how do I change that? Well, no, ultimately, you're not going to change the outcome, because guess what? None of us are getting out of here alive. But how do I make that journey better? Yeah. What do I do with that? How do I work on things that are, not the best?
Yeah, your feelings during this time and everything, you're not broken. They're valid. And so that's important, the validity of them, and to carry them along. It's the same thing in the grief process and it's so individualized, as you said, and to meet them where they are and kind of help them along the course, so the expertise you've both gained in things in this helps along that journey, because everybody's saying, well, I can just do that myself. Well, no, sometimes we've got things that we can assist you with to make it a little bit more comfortable for you.
Yeah. Or work you through it. I talk about in the coaching aspect of things, we talk about, coaching and counseling. What's the difference? Well, I can go to a counselor and, have this. Counseling will look for something to fix, and they need a diagnosis, or they need a something, and there's actually, what blows my mind is, there's actually a diagnosis out there called prolonged grief. What is that? I don't
Yeah.
understand that. Like it's something to be fixed, you know. But in the coaching world, it's how do we just help you figure out your answers for yourself? Because I'm just here to help you. I'm not here to tell you what to do or how to do anything or tell you that your prolonged grief is too
Yeah.
prolonged.
Yeah.
You know.
I could see maybe
So
prolonged acute grief, like maybe the
yeah,
intensity of that initial
yeah,
time shouldn't last forever, and
sure.
shouldn't last a long time. So
No,
yeah, there's definitely things you can check, but yeah, I can understand how it's like, okay, well, what, this grief is going to eventually goes away. You can make this go away. No, that doesn't happen. So yeah.
right, right.
Mhm.
So
Right. And I think,
no,
well,
no.
sorry, adding on that, I think people that are experiencing grief, you feel a lot of things inside your body that you
Hmm.
think there's something wrong with you. Like you feel, some people have anxiety. I feel like I can't breathe, and they really
Hmm.
think they can't breathe, but it's just the normal process. So it's just trying to help
Hmm.
people through that. Like you might feel sick to your stomach. You might be throwing up because it causes physical symptoms
Yeah,
inside your body.
absolutely. Important thing for people
So
to remember. So we've covered quite a few things here. What about anything that we didn't talk about that you want to talk about? Well, look at these
I,
people. They're
I
quiet.
yeah.
I'm just,
oh,
just
oh,
That doesn't happen very often. I'm sure you can probably figure
yeah.
that out because we're like,
I'm like to put you on the spot. Yeah. So
No, I wish we could talk about this more and there not be the stigma associated next to it. So I'm so grateful for having the opportunity to do this. So thank you so much for having us here and being able to
yeah,
share our stories. And I think the more and more that I share my story, it helps me in the long run heal myself. So that's what I hope to do for other
yeah.
people too.
because it gives us the opportunity every time we talk about it or every time we talk to an individual one on one. It gives us that opportunity to recognize those things in
Hmm.
us
Hmm.
and and say, this is how I can do this better. So this is how we're gonna
Yeah.
move forward.
I don't know if you find it in your circles, but I see in mine because I network so much and, trying to, it's just something I've always done, especially with social media. I've just had I really just get in there and there's a whole underground of work in this, but as we're all trying to
Hmm.
break the stigma of it. And so that seems like there's this thing to break through or something. And so we're all just trying to do that. And I think our fingers are getting through there. We're getting through a little bit and getting the work done. But any awareness of this, and I appreciate the work that you do so much, both of you, because and it hit me this morning, actually. I was thinking about that. I'm like, you know what? The further I get into this, the more I appreciate every single person that's on this journey with us, because we all feel the same way about it. That because of what we've experienced, I think too, is that we've been comforted, we've been helped, we've been, with someone who walked along with us, and we know how much it means. And so, I just try to say we're grief friends for you. We're here for you. We're here with you. It's not this big like the legacy word. It's not a big word here. We're just trying to be your friends in this, and you can get some help, along the journey. And you find more and more. I talk to people on the street out there or whatever. I drive for, Uber and stuff during the day. And I, got a little thing about the podcast in there. So conversations come up. And, a guy yesterday, he was like, yeah, my dad died 7 months ago. And he just hadn't done anything with it whatsoever, And I said, you gotta work with this. You gotta work through this. You do have to deal with your grief, or as you said, like Kerry with the button in the box, you're going to hit the button. The button's going to get hit, And I heard someone else say it's like a jack in the box. All of a sudden, it just pops up and it's there. I had a, all of a sudden, grief hit me and tears come to my eyes, which it doesn't happen a real lot. And I'm not too long into things, but it did yesterday. Just driving, all of a sudden, I thought of Jeff and something, pointed to him, and it hit me hard. And it doesn't always do that, but it does happen, and it's going to happen down the line too. So important for people to understand.
Sometimes I think
Definitely.
though in those moments, and I know this goes deeper than because people are entitled to their own beliefs and believe different things, but like I believe that when those moments happen, that's like they're still there. We can't see them, but their spirit is still with us, and that's their reminder of don't forget about me. I'm still here. Like so, yeah, that's why it happens. I think
Yep.
anyway.
I tend to agree along those lines.
I would
Yeah.
agree.
So I had a friend recently on one of the podcasts, and he's like, "Yeah, I would like to talk to you a lot about that spiritual side of things." And I said, "Well, maybe I need a whole offshoot of the podcast to go into those things with my guests. I think because I could talk about that for
Yeah,
days. So that's great.
yeah,
All right,
yeah.
so folks, locally, the location right is the Body Essential. That's what it's called, right in Williamsville. Correct.
Correct.
Town Square
Georgetown Square
Plaza.
Plaza.
Again, the links will be in the show notes, so please look there for them. We'll have the links for you, or you can contact Kerry and Christine, the rest of the great services that are available there and everything. And your death doula kind of service is it's Empyrean. Is that the name of it? Empyrean and
Correct.
end of life care. And so that's an aspect of it. But they have a lot of things available for you there. And just ask some questions. Call and ask some questions and see what they can help you with, or what they can assist you with, whatever it may be. Like you don't need to be fixed all the time, right? Awesome. Well, I want to thank you both so much for coming on. I appreciate it, and hope it was good for you. To say it that way, whatever.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us. It was great, and we just want to help
Absolutely.
get the word
Thanks.
out.
Yeah, and we'll talk
Thank
to you
you.
about I'd like to know more about the Death Cafe and what you're going to be doing with that and everything.
Absolutely.
So, the first steps here definitely are locally to work to get things out to people in all situations. So, pleasure, Christine, Kerry. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to the Heroes in Grief podcast. If you'd like access to any of the links that we discussed in today's show, you can find them in the show notes. There's also a link there to support the podcast if you care to. And there is an email link for me there. I'd love to hear from you and your ideas about the show or what you thought about the show. You really can help out this podcast to get to more people if you subscribe, rate, or review it in whichever way your platform provides. Each week, Heroes in Grief is released on Sunday, so look for new episodes there. Thank you again for listening to Heroes in Grief.